This video is going to be a mixed bag of things. First thing is that I recently updated all my iOS versions, all my iOS games. I got a bunch of them back online after they were taken offline. Check this video over here. The most asked questions for that one. Was it worth it? Let's look at the numbers and let's see why I think it was worth it. Another fun story I have for you is about PlayStation and how I kind of got screwed over on a little business deal there. Hey, I'm Pascal from Orangepixel. Welcome to another video. Let's dive right in. Okay, first thing is the iOS games. Was it worth it? During that week I spent maybe like 16 hours updating 12 games, getting them all live and on the App Store again. Now a lot of that time was updating my projects and tools and everything and the whole build system. And that's not just for the iOS version. I had to do that anyway to also be able to update the Android versions and the PC versions. So no matter if I was doing iOS, at some point I had to do this anyway. So with that in mind, let's see, it's 16 hours. Let's see what it did revenue-wise. So I've been developing games for mobile since 2004 and then iOS since 2009. And the last game I released was over here. That's the week of September 5th, 2022. So that's 2.5 years sort of ago. That's a peak of sales revenue coming in. That was a residual. Then you can see how it slowly dies out. Over here we have a little peak, which was probably one of the last discounts I did on iOS, which was in 2023. So that's a few years ago. I might have tried it again a few times here, but over the time of this whole line, a bunch of my games simply didn't exist on iOS anymore. So we're talking about maybe 4, 5, 3, 2 games still alive on iOS. And we had like 12 games live over there. Also, these games for the most part have the youngest game is 2022. So that game is now about 3 years old. All the other games are older than that, with the oldest game being 2012, I think, Gunslugs. So that's 13 years old. We're talking about decade-old games that are still selling. It's just not a lot. I think this is per week. So that's like roughly, this is a week, it's $53. This is 1 week, 112. I think this was a discount at some point. 120 at this one. So over time you can see how this really drips out. It's still money that comes in from games that you don't really have to do much about anymore and that have been existing. So let's say $31 for games for 12 years long every week. It's not something you ignore, and that makes it interesting for me to keep it updated. After updating the games and doing the video, I made sure to have a discount because now I had all my games live on the App Store again. Let's run a little discount, see what it does. And I think in that week I made $346. The week isn't over yet. So yeah, that's the first discount. Now that I have all the games live again, and it made me $350, maybe a little bit over that, $350 for just 2 days of work. And I made a video out of it, so that's actually extra bonus, and I had to do those updates anyway. So for me it has been more than worth it. I will run regular discounts again on iOS like I've been doing on Android. So these bumps will become more and more, and over the course of a year I'm fairly sure that it's worth it. Developer fee for Apple is $100 per year. I made that back very easily, and I will continue selling these games for another 5 years, maybe more. And I also want to release new games. For that, it's a lot better if you have already a catalog of games available, because it's a numbers thing. If you have a lot of games and you move more games into it, it just works a lot better than having just one single game out there. Now I ran into a couple of things that I had to re-update. So most of the games have gotten 2 or maybe 3 updates since then. Now one of those things was Retina displays, and libgdx changed something a few versions ago that created a change in how you get the right display height and height. And because of that little change, luckily somebody else over the recent years had already noticed this, and there is an option for it in libgdx to make sure that it works like it used to. Except if you don't know that option exists, you release it and you have no idea. I don't have a Retina of iOS, iPhone myself, so I couldn't test this, but I got word from various users that this was happening. Updated all the games, fixed a few Game Center bugs here and there, but it's all up and running now. So let's talk about my other thing this week, PlayStation revenue. And a fun story on how I kind of maybe got a little bit screwed on that project. So at some point Sony was looking for a lot of indie games, and I had Gunslugs, Heroes of Loot, tried to contact them, reach out to them. They were actively reaching out to indie developers, so got connected. Then Sony introduced me to a other company who would do a lot of porting for also Sony, but also other indie developers. Long story very short, we got Gunslugs and Heroes Loot on PS Vita. I actually got some revenue from that still, just last week, even though the PS Vita store is gone, so I'm not sure how it works. Maybe with some sort of gift codes or something. Not sure, but there is still money coming in from there. We're not talking a lot of money, it's like $50, but money came in. Now the fun story here is that I kind of got screwed on it a little bit. Probably because I missed something in the agreement somewhere at some point. But Sony paid an upfront sum to the porting company, who then took Gunslugs and Heroes of Loot, ported it, got it running on PS Vita, released it as part of this Sony's independent game thing that they had going. And my agreement with the porting company was a 50-50 revenue split, which is fair, except that I didn't know about the Sony upfront payment to port these games. So actually the porting company got paid by Sony already for all the work, and that money had to be made back on Sony's end first. So all the first thousands of sales, and this was a lot because it was Sony's money. So Sony was very well into promoting it. So a lot of sales of these games happened just to get Sony its money back, or PlayStation, and only then did the 50-50 start kicking in. Yeah, I still made money on it. That's good, but it still doesn't sit quite right there. I mean, if I had known of the upfront money that the company got paid, so they actually made money on this already doing the work, I wouldn't have agreed on a 50-50. But I don't think that was clear to me at that time. I'm not sure even if it's in the agreement. I had no agreement with Sony, so I had no idea there was this thing going on between them. I got a royalty screwed in this case. But hey, I got my games on a PlayStation. Pretty cool. Got a lot of people to find my name. So over time it worked out. But there could have been a lot more money there if I had known. Did I say that was a fun story? Okay, so I feel like I'm jumping across topics, but it's just been that chaotic kind of week for me. Haven't worked much on Space Grunts either the last week because I've been doing the porting on iOS, been doing a bunch of other things. I just couldn't get into the rhythm of it. Now this is also going to be my final week to work on Space Grunts because I decided that April will be all about regulators. I need to wrap up that project, do some testing on the game, create a trailer for the game, get it up and running and perfectly ready for a release in May. I have this schedule for this year, I talked about it on this channel before. This game is going to be released in May. We got Gauntlet of Power releasing on the Atari VCS fairly early in April. So there's another release, and then in May it has to be regulators. So one more week to work on Space Grunts, and then a month working on regulators. After that I'll return working on Space Grunts so I can get that one ready for a June Next Fest and a release pretty soon after that. And then it will be starting on the next game. And meanwhile, my friends over at Handy Games have been working on getting my PC games on more platforms than just Steam and Itch, which I already covered, and Humble, which I had partly covered. All my games should now be available on GOG as well. And I had Google Alert on many of my game titles, so I can see it pop up here and there on Chinese sites, Russian sites, illegal sites, obviously that also happens, but on a bunch of other game stores and things. So stuff is moving in that direction as well. My iOS versions are moving. Android currently is running a discount, or probably just ended when this video goes live. Switch versions all had a discounted sale going on. PC on Steam, we had a Handy Games had a publisher sale going on and a bundle, and then of course the spring sale. So a lot of things were happening and moving, and right now it feels like it's going towards the right direction. We're not there yet, but it's heading in the right direction, and that's cool to see, and that gives me energy to keep working on my games and get my new games up and running and ready to go. Now that I have all the projects updated for iOS, it's also become a lot easier for me to update a few of the PC versions. They need better interfaces. The gameplay is fine, it's great, but some of them, they came from mobile, and I quickly ported them over to PC versions. I can improve the interface on some of these titles. I just need some time to work on that, but now that the projects are updated, that made it a lot easier to change these things and update these games to hopefully keep them going for another decade or more, because that's really where my money comes from. It's not just my new game release, it's making sure all my titles keep selling as long as possible on as many projects and platforms as possible. So mobile versions, Android versions are also coming to the Epic Store. That's another thing. So everywhere things are moving, and that's a good sign. Still a very long way to go to get back on top after last year's terrible year. So, but it's moving in the right direction. So I'm kind of happy with all that. And I figured I just do this video to give you an update for the regular viewers. This was an update on a lot of things. Got a fun video planned for probably next week. I visited the school I talked about, the local school who is giving sort of game development lessons. Gonna do a fun video on that topic as well pretty soon. And after that it will probably be about regulators, as that's the next game, the next new game that I'm releasing on PC. And let's see how that all works out. But for now, let's end the video right here. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment below. If you're a regular viewer, have nothing specific to comment, but you want to give this video the attention and help it in the algorithm to move up, then drop the comment upwards, because things are moving upwards, and that's a good sign. So drop that in the comments below, like, subscribe, and I will see you next week's video. Bye.